Welcome to the Bronx African American History Project. My name is Stephen Payne, librarian and archivist at the Bronx County Historical Society, and I'm here for the second part of the oral history with Dr. Frederick Collins, Bronxite, born and bred in the Bronx, now living over on the opposite coast, and we're excited to hear what else Dr. Collins has to share with us today. So Dr. Collins, why don't you go ahead and start where you want to start, and then we'll get into it more.
All right, thank you, Dr. Payne. I was just saying earlier today about how the Bronx has changed quite a bit from the early days. It's been through a lot of change in the Bronx, actually. So, if I start back with, when we moved to the Bronx back in the late 60s to now, there was many different types of change. And I'm just happy that it's such a wonderful place again. It's just so clean and so nice, and the beautiful buildings are power washed, and the streets are incredible, and business seems to be booming. I don't know about now during the pandemic, but there was the last time I was in New York about 2 years ago. Everything was just so beautiful and nice. I could not believe what I was looking at. So I bet it's really nice to live in New York right now.
Yeah, no, I love living in the Bronx. I mean, there's other parts of New York that you could find similar things in, but there's something about the Bronx, just the variety of people who live in the Bronx. I mean, all over the world. It's been that way for a long time now, but I think it's, even more diverse now than ever in the past. I mean, you can walk down a street and you'll see signs in Arabic from like a Yemeni, small little Yemeni community, and then the next block there'll be 2 or 3 little Mexican joints along the way, and then suddenly you're in the midst of a Bangladeshi community. It's wild. It's wild. Just all overlapping. So it's great.
That's great. I know back in, I left New York in 77 as a resident, January 77 to go in the military. And back then we had maybe a Chinese restaurant, a lot of Italian food, some Jewish delicatessens, which is always a great thing for me. I'm a pastrami guy. I love it. So there wasn't a lot of diversity, I don't think, in the Bronx then. Like, there was a few things. Sure. Maybe Jamaican up on Gun Hill Road, which still a lot of Jamaicans. We got a lot of family up there, actually. My wife's family lives up there. And so it's just so nice to reminisce with you folks about the Bronx and think about how much change it's went through. Because, again, when I was a youngin' in the Bronx back in the mid-70s, going to Gompers High School, the Bronx wasn't all that nice.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, the Bronx was really beat up and burnt down, and there was a lot of problems with gangs and fighting and all kinds of stuff. My grandmother used to live in some apartments on 149th Street, towards Southern Boulevard. I don't know the name of the projects there, but it used to be tough getting from the west side of Sedgwick over to 149th Street, just, 2-3 buses going through 149th Street. I mean, crossing over at 161st, there used to be a lot of drama just to make that 2-hour trip.
Yeah, it's still not the easiest to go across the Bronx. I mean, it could take you, like an hour and a half or something if you're going from one side of the Bronx to the other. But yeah, I've heard that I think part of the big reason for some of the devastation in the Bronx in the 70s is the city cut so many services, and those haven't necessarily been ever restored, at least some of them, but people have just found their own ways to make things work. And I think a lot of the revival of the Bronx is thanks not to the city I wish, the city would help out some more, but thanks to, communities and people being creative and resilient. But I heard the other day, I think the MTA is planning some commuter rails in the Bronx, but of course that's not going to solve the crossing the Bronx. It's just going to be for people living in luxury apartments along
Yeah.
the east or the west side of the Bronx. So still not being solved with that, but hey, we do
Yeah.
we do what we can.
Yeah, and you got to have that too. I mean, money buys privilege, and I looked at a plan they had for some apartments, condominiums actually, over there by Yankee Stadium on the waterfront.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my, that's going to be something in town. Like, it's serious. That's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is. I've seen those too. So.
Yeah. So the one thing I want to get to today, I don't know how much time it's going to take, and it shouldn't take very long, was just the whole idea of how I started this activity with you, was to kind of talk about how I found the Bronx moving into 15. Okay, so going back to our family history, we went to California in the early mid-60s when my father died. And we came back under traumatic circumstances to Olinville in 68. My grandmother had a stroke, and so we came back and lived with them for a couple of years at Olinville before my mom found this new apartment at 1520 Sedgwick, and she was a teacher with 2 kids, and somehow she figured it out as a widow of a Navy guy and single mother. She found a way into that building. And so it was interesting to me because we went from a situation where Olinville in the late 60s, 3555 Olinville Avenue, apartment 17B, right, was in an area that was predominantly Italian and Jewish.
Sure.
Beautiful neighborhood, beautiful people. And that's the one thing I also miss about America generally, is that community was so welcoming. I didn't realize so much about racism or differences between Black and white people. We were coming from LA, Southern California, and my grandparents were mixed, and their building was all white.
Yeah.
And they were professionals, and all of those people were their friends.
Yeah.
So for us as little Black kids, we didn't even recognize, the whole idea behind differences between races. Like I said, my brother was a hippie, had white girlfriends, had white friends, listened to rock music. None of that really affected us, really, and so I think back into those times, like, what happened to America? That it used to be just so cool. You could go to a Jewish deli or Italian restaurant or have neighbors and friends from all over Europe. It was incredible. All my friends are white when I lived in Olinville. I can go back to some names in that building. Jean Rhodey. Jean Rhodey, her husband was a guard at Rikers for many years. She was very good friends with my grandparents. The nicest Italian lady you ever want to meet. Treated us well all the time. And there was many people like that in those buildings. Sure. And so for us, and even at PS 41, even though PS 41 was, I would say, a third Black, white, and Hispanic, just kind of split in 3 ways, but there wasn't a whole lot of problems between people or anything. The difference happened actually early 70s, 69, 70, when we moved to the west side of the Bronx to 1520 Sedgwick. That first year, everything is the way I explained it,
Sure.
People, everything. But then there was this exodus of white folks from the West Bronx. And all of a sudden, University Avenue, which was a sprawling metropolis of buildings and people and everything else, just kind of went totally black and brown overnight.
Yeah.
And the things started closing up. And I don't assign blame to anybody or anything for any of this. I'm just sharing what my interpretation of the Bronx was during that time.
Any of
yes, sir, please.
Oh, I was going to say that. So you were close with some of the white children in 1520 Sedgwick who eventually moved. Did they ever give you any explanation why their family was moving, or did they ever?
They just disappeared. They just left. I was just close to one kid, Richard, who we did talk. He was moving. He was a little bit older than me. He was like 17. He was moving to Texas. He had got married. And the funniest thing, too, because when he told me that, I was at a place where, what are you talking about? Like, now I'm into my manhood at 16, 17 and running around in the streets and being as black as I can be in terms of my identity and everything else. And I just couldn't understand what he was talking about. Like, what are you talking about? Sure. You're getting married, you're moving to Texas, and you found a job. And what is that about? I honestly could not understand what the hell he was doing. And how is that possible at such a young age to even want to make those kind of moves? Right? Sure. I didn't get that. I guess because my worldview was so limited at that time, not because people didn't try to educate me, but because, a personal thing. My worldview was down to what I was and what I did and who my group of friends were. And sure. I wasn't looking beyond that too much, So I didn't understand that people had the ability to do that. I didn't understand how to do that. I didn't understand how you did that,
Yeah.
It wasn't until a couple of years later where the military saved me and got me away from all of that I kind of understood how that might happen.
Sure.
But early on, it was kind of like, wow, how did that happen? Because there was two predominantly white families in there, if not more. I can only think of two, but the Days and the Frays. It was kind of interesting because they had similar names. And I think both of them was Richard, too.
Huh.
One Richard, my buddy, Richard Day, was a single kid to a single mom. I think she got married later. And Richard Frey, I remember he had a beautiful sister. I don't know her name, but this girl was incredible. I was like, God damn, where did she come? But they moved out early on, like the first year that the building was up. I'm not sure when the fire at Concourse Plaza happened. I want to think it's probably about a year, 18 months after the building opened. Before we got filled overnight, because it was an empty building for at least a year. It was an empty building. And I think back to moving into that building, we took a cab from Olinville to go see the apartment. My mom had got the keys and everything. Let's go see the apartment. And back then, I don't know if they still have this, but back then in the Olinville area, and I think that's your neighborhood. You know a lot about that neighborhood.
Yeah. I used to live there, yeah.
They had a cab company called Tulip. And the phone number was TU2-2222. Call Tulip today, and Tulip was a cab, and we call a cab. Turns out a guy that my brother knew from New York actually lived here in Washington, in our town. And they hooked up as adults. And he used to be a cab driver for Tulip.
Oh,
and
wow.
He remembered taking me and my mom that night over to 1520. And actually, when I moved here, he showed me my first little raggedy car. It was a Datsun 510 white with rusted all out, but that thing ran great though. For 350, that was incredible.
Wow.
But yeah, Ricky, he remembered taking us over there that night, and we couldn't find the building. It wasn't on a map. Unless you know Sedgwick Avenue at that part, you would drive past it one way and go Undercliff looking the other way and end up at the police station, and then you turn around and then you go again and you passed it. It's like, it took us a couple hours to find the building. And then finally, by accident, he did a U-turn down at the end of Undercliff and came around and found it after a couple of hours looking for it. So that was kind of weird, not being able to find the building. You know,
it's definitely in an out of the way, out of the way place. It's built up now, but I'm sure at that time there's not a whole lot else around there, right?
No, there was only two, and I was going to get to this too. There were two private houses on the far end of that block, closest to the bridge at Roberto Clemente and East Tremont. Down on that end of, there was two red brick buildings, private homes, big red brick private homes. They're still there. I was checking the Google map the other day. Those two houses are still there, and they had two black families in it, as it turns out.
Okay,
yeah. I went to school with the one family, Donald's sister, Donna, and then there was three other sisters. They lived in one building, and Billy lived in the other building, and he was a single cat with the family. So it was two black families at the end of that block, and then you had 1520 on the other end of the block, and there was nothing in between.
Yeah.
For like a half a mile. It was just empty. It was a parking lot for old moving trucks that hadn't worked in 50 years. They were just kind of sat in there and died, Sure. That's where 1600 and 1750 are now.
Yeah.
It was just empty. And so moving there was pretty desolate generally. And so we find this building and we get there, and there's no lock on the front door. The intercom hasn't even been put in the hole. It's just brand spanking new, beautiful building.
Yeah.
New glass, still had the stickers on them and everything. So it was a beautiful building that way. And then we went upstairs and looked at this apartment. And I don't know if you've ever been in that building, but the views in 1520 are ridiculous.
I'm sure they are. I've never been in there yet, but
especially from the top floor. We were one away from the top on 17, and we were on the front with the balcony on the front. A lot of people have balconies on the back. The 3 bedrooms have balconies on the back. They're kind of looking at Undercliff and the buildings that way. But the ones in the front, it's like 181st Street Bridge, George Washington Bridge behind that.
Yeah.
You look left, you can see Yankee Stadium, you can see Times Square at night lit up. And you look right, you can look all the way upstate and follow the Major Deegan all the way upstate. So the views were incredible. And we were like right on line with Yeshiva University. So we could see them and they could see us just like right there. Those views were incredible. On the river, actually, thanks to an old guy who used to advise me, it's actually what the Hudson River estuary is. And what that is, and so the views were incredible. And then there was a handful of families there in 69 where we moved in, this home of hip hop culture, as they say. There was a handful of Black professionals in the building. I remember Mr. Robinson on 18C. He used to be a bus driver. He had this beautiful big blue Cadillac back there. And then Miss Merchant, she was a real estate agent. She had a beautiful big car too. And, there was a couple of families, I don't know. And then there was a guy on the 11th floor, my brother dated his daughter Alex for a short period of time. Both Alex and her dad were engineers at Grumman. I never even heard of Grumman.
Huh.
Never heard of Grumman back in the early 70s, right? But
Yeah.
and this was a young girl, man. She was about 18. Her dad might have been middle-aged guy, but they were both black engineers at Grumman. And I was like, wow, and that is pretty incredible
That is, yeah.
for this little tiny building with only a handful of people in there. And then there was a couple of small black families. I think about Mr. Reynolds. He was a Jamaican guy. He was the superintendent of our building. He had a small, young family. I don't know what happened to him. He kind of took off in the first year. There was a family on 2A, which is a big 3-bedroom apartment on the first floor, second floor, 2A. Melody, I'm trying to get you some names too in case.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into my history a little bit. There was a family on the 2A, Melody and Robert Berger. They were there early on. See, there's not a whole lot of people who were there early that I'm associated with or who are still alive.
Yeah, sure. Because
But like I said,
first, huh?
there's not too many people that can do what I'm doing right now
Yeah,
in terms of how the early stages of that building. And Melody and Robert Berger, they moved in there fairly early as well.
Do you know how to spell burger? Is it Berger?
That's what I believe.
Okay.
That's my belief, yeah. And then up on 15A, there was a nice black family, actually dated a daughter for a little while. Her name was Annette Tracy Stevens. That was my buddy.
Annette Tracy Stevens, okay.
Yeah, her family, the Stevens family, she had a brother named Anthony and a little sister and a mother and a dad. So it was a nice sized family. I think it was 3 or 4 kids. And they were professionals. I'm not sure what Tracy's parents did, but they were professionals too. And so the building was chock full of, not full, but I would say we're about 10% capacity.
Yeah.
That first year. But it was a lot of black professional families. My mom was a school teacher, PS54, with a single mom with 2 kids, a widow. I'm thinking prior to the exodus of the fire over at Concord Village, which actually filled us up overnight.
Yeah,
So that's a whole different set of circumstances I want to describe too, because that kind of changed a little bit how we interacted down there, because then we had new people, all of a sudden too. So, but in the early days, it was a family in 18F. Robin and Sandra Robinson, I want to say. And they were there early on. It was 2 daughters. I'm not sure what the makeup of. I think they did have the mom and dad there too. Just a handful of folks early on to the building. The young Hispanic family on 11F, I think it was 10F, where the daughter fell out the window. That might have been 11E. I don't remember. I want to say Cruz was their name. It was a single guy with 3 beautiful little girls.
Wow.
One of them fell out the window, died, but that was incredibly horrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, the building started out as this place where young minority professionals would find their new home.
Yeah.
I remember my mom being really excited about finding this place, and it was awesome too. I'm talking about the views, the building, everything.
Brand new and
brand spanking new. Was incredible.
Yeah. Do you think most of the other people who moved in first moved from other parts of the Bronx like your family, or you think there's a mix?
I think early on, I think there was somewhat of a mix, not much. Most of them was probably from the Bronx.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't until later on that we got people from everywhere. But early on, I think most of them were from the Bronx.
sure.
And they like they owned cars and they had jobs and
Yeah,
it was incredible. Like I said, they just threw this building up in a nowhere space,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in a nowhere space, and they hadn't even thought about how people are going to live or get to the grocery store or anything. There wasn't even any steps.
It's kind of like Co-op City too, which went up, right around the same time in the
Yeah,
middle of nowhere, or Freedom Land was there for a little bit, but more or less in the middle of nowhere. And even now, you got to take buses to get there. They were planning a subway route there for the longest time, but they just kind of threw it up in the middle of nowhere on the other side of the Bronx too. Same kind of deal. But
that was nowhere land. That
yeah,
was my wife's dad ended up moving there in the early '80s, and we used to go visit him. Like even then, it was like, where the hell is this place, dude? You could see it from 10 miles away with all of these spikes going up into the sky. That's how I used to see, oh, that must be it right there. It looks like a city, man, in the skyline back there, you know?
yeah,
Yeah. But they did have, if I remember correctly, like in-house amenities, like a supermarket
yeah.
and like a drugstore and all kinds of little stuff in there.
Y'all didn't have any of that.
We had none of that. In
Yeah,
fact, you know where this building is located. It's like on the backside of University Hill.
yeah,
And they didn't even figure out how to get us up that hill. Like I said, we used to have to climb a dirt hill to get to Undercliff.
oh my god.
And I remember the first time I ever touched my mother's ass was pushing her up this hill. Come on, moms, you can do this, bro. You can do this. Just grab this thing and grab the vine and to get to Undercliff, that's what we had to do, you know.
Yeah,
Actually, first and last time, let's just clear that. I touched my mom's ass. But pushing her up this hill so we can get to Undercliff.
yeah,
And then there's steps where you can get to university. But
sure.
from Sedgwick to Undercliff, there was nothing. They've since built a little path and put some steps and all that you can get up. But we didn't have any of that. And there was a group of moms, I would say in year 2, after we had got more folks in there, there was some really outspoken and advocates, see folks that moved in who rallied the city for a bus line.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
And that bus is still running at 18.
sure.
It doesn't go far to 18. I don't know how far it goes now, but it used to just go from Sedgwick up Tremont, a loop around University, Boscobel Park, Undercliff, and back around, you know. I
Yeah,
don't know where it goes now. I think it goes a little further down Tremont now, but we had to do that because that was the only way to get out of there, you know.
yeah,
But when you get to university, let's talk about the early years of living in that area. You get to university, 174th Street University. That's where we end up after we climb Mount Vesuvius to get up there. You know, they had a Jewish deli on the corner, beautiful place. That's where we all learned about egg creams. I never knew what an egg cream was
yeah.
until these guys made me a vanilla egg cream. And I'm like, are you serious? This is good stuff right here. With a burger, forget about it. It's beautiful.
I bet you can't find egg creams out in Washington, huh?
No, I know. I think that what they try to do is like they got these what they call Italian sodas,
Yeah,
but they don't have. I don't think they actually use egg or cream or any of that in it. I don't know what the hell Italian soda is, but no, you can't get an egg cream. They still make those, right?
not every diner, but there's a few you can still get them at in the Bronx. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, it was great. And they had a little supermarket there. I remember in the supermarket a couple years later anyway, they used to deal with, they used to take food stamps, and I never knew what a food stamp was. My mom worked, so I never even knew about a food stamp. But then we found out that, yeah, you could buy anything with a food stamp. They don't even care. You could buy alcohol, beer, cigarettes. They did not care what you turned in a food stamp for.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I learned about the food stamp economy from some of those stores up there. And we had uh, a dry cleaner, a mini mart. There was a wonderful Puerto Rican meat market down the hill on Featherbed Lane.
Sure.
That's where my mom introduced me to chorizo,
Oh yeah.
which I still eat to this day.
It's delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. She used to make it with grits, and with that red sauce and the meat,
Mm.
and that used to pour into the grits with the butter. Oh my God, that used to be a great morning breakfast. Messing around with Rita, that was, her name was Loretta Heath Collins. Loretta Collins. She taught for many years at Piers 54, and then there was a school down by Roberto Clemente. They had a school that was kind of built up on a train tracks. I don't know what the name of that school is, but there's a big elementary school down there. That's right in front of Roberto Clemente. It's built up on the train tracks there. She taught there for many years too. And so that was something. And the thing about, I'll just take a quick sidebar if you don't mind.
Oh sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Talk about my mom. She worked in so many communities in New York. I went to visit her one day at a school in the East Bronx, somewhere she was working for a short period of time. And she said, yeah, come and hang out with me, see what I do, and meet some of my friends. Because she was really close with a lot of the teachers, like my Aunt Mary Lynch.
Mm.
Mary Lynch was a lady that she worked with, became great friends, and became my aunt overnight because she was at my house every weekend.
Yeah.
In fact, Mary Lynch's cousin, Vincent Stewart, she introduced Vincent to my mother, and they were together for 10, 15 years.
Oh wow, wow, yeah.
Yeah, so we became family with Miss Mary Lynch. She had a son named Bobby. Bobby was a big time disc jockey down at Electric Circus back in the day. That was a big time club back in the day, Electric Circus. And Bobby was a DJ there for a while. I remember seeing Bobby one day in Central Park with his boyfriend, Steven. I seen him in Central Park. This was after a night of hanging out with my brother and his ragtag group of hippies. And we spent the night at the Rock in Central Park. I mean, actually sleeping on the Rock until morning, you know, so having a great night, just hanging out and playing music and being together. And this group of folks, we ran into Bobby and Steven one morning. I seen them walking down Central Park. So sorry to be all over the place with these
Oh
stories.
no. Keep going. This is perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So my brothers, so yeah, my mom, that was her friend, Miss Mary Lynch. She had a husband named Benny. And Benny was a big guy. He was a cab driver in the Bronx. He owned his own cab. And that was a big deal too,
Yeah.
to be a business owner, to have your own source of income.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, Benny died of a heart attack while we just got to meet Mr. Benny. He was a nice man too. But yeah, Mary Lynch and Bobby were really, really close to us. And if you ever run into them, tell them I say hello.
Where do they live in the Bronx? You remember?
Crotona Park area.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to say. And then there was a family too. Speaking of families that were close to, Blanche Escoffrey.
Blanche Escoffrey.
It's a weird last name, and I've seen it in the phone book Escoffrey too. Maybe she has some family still there. But Blanche Escoffrey, we knew from St. Albans back in the early 60s.
Mm.
She was a neighbor of ours. She since had moved to the Bronx, and my mother had gotten back with her a little bit to talk on the phone. And Blanche, actually, okay, I'll tell you a story about Blanche. Blanche used to live on the second floor in our building back in St. Albans in Queens,
Okay.
back in the early 60s. She used to be really close with us. We lived on the third floor. She lived on the second floor. I was a little tyke, like 2, 3 years old. My brother might have been 5. And we used to hang out with her kids, and they used to babysit us and blah, 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 blah. So one day I was coming in the steps to go up to the third floor to go home. I ran into my dad coming into the stairwell.
Yeah.
And he said, no, 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 take your butt back downstairs and go down Blanche's house now. You're not going in this house. I didn't get what that was about. He went up the stairs. I went down the stairs.
Yeah.
So I'm standing in the kitchen with Miss Blanche Scott-Free. She's giving me some Kool-Aid and we're drinking it. I'm standing next to the window. All of a sudden, the window goes black and then goes white, like something passed by the window. And she starts screaming and sends me in the back room with her daughter. Long story short, that was my father's body.
Oh, man.
That passed by that window and darkened it for half a second.
Oh, wow.
And, he had, according to the medical examiner, committed suicide.
Oh, my God.
And that's when that was my Blanche story. She protected us and kept us safe. And we were friends with her for many years.
Yeah.
And she had, I believe she had a boyfriend. I believe that was her boyfriend. What was that guy's name? Raymond? It's a Puerto Rican dude.
Mm.
He was real nice to us too. I think his name was Raymond. And anyway, Blanche, she was a really nice lady. And as it turns out, one day, many, many years later, in 1977, let's skip forward for half a second.
Yeah, sure.
Back stories, here's a good one. I'm working at the Air Force Base. I'm director of recreation, working nights in a gym on the closing shift. This black lady used to come in every night, 15 minutes before I got there and closed at 11 o'clock at night. Hey, I want to use the hot tub. And I'm like, dude, you got to hurry up, bro. You know, like, we closing in 15. She always used to come 15 minutes to closing, and I was worried that I was worried that I would not get out on time after working the 3 to 11 shift.
For sure.
But I used to always threaten, yo, you better come out of there. I'm going to be banging on the door and drag you out of there because I got to get out of here. So she was a real nice lady. She was from New York. What the hell was her name? Her name was, last name Jackson, Sheila Jackson. Sheila Jackson,
okay.
Yeah, and she was from New York. She was from Queens, and we got to talking one night. And I said, let's go have a beer and talk about New York. Okay. We went and had a beer, talk about New York. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm from St. Albans. I said, I'm from St. Albans. Yeah, and she's like, yeah. Then she looked at me and said, you got a brother named Stanley? And I'm like, yeah. She said, your mother named Miss Rita? I'm like, yeah. She passes out in the bar and hits the floor. I'm talking about passes out, blacks out, passes out on the floor. We got some medical attention, waking her up. Are you okay? Are you okay? She said, man, I've been looking for y'all for 30 years.
Wow.
What appeared to be 30 years. It would have been 15.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? She says, man, I used to be your mother's babysitter.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
She said, I babysitted you and your brother the night your father died.
Oh, my God. Wow.
I found his shoe in the playground because it popped off his foot.
Yeah.
this lone brown shoe in the playground, and I gave it to the police.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you serious? That's, life is
That's crazy.
funny
Wow.
and life is small, very small.
Yeah.
This lady, Sheila Jackson, she, and so we called my mother. I didn't believe it. I
Yeah.
called my mother in New York and woke her ass up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, Mom, I got this lady here I'm talking to. And they knew each other. Oh my God, let me talk to her.
That's
Let me
crazy.
talk to her. And turns out my brother came to visit from the Navy that weekend. And him and Sheila hit it off. Like they started going out. It was kind of funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was and she was the babysitter.
Yeah.
But it was a really young, cute lady, and my brother was a big, handsome womanizer. So they kind of got together for a minute. It was kind of funny, but yeah, she was a beautiful lady,
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wild. I mean, yeah, the chances of that's insane. I mean, yeah, so I guess after all of that, that's when you all moved to California, huh?
Yes, absolutely. My mom used to say, well, even though I, was raised in a Bronx and you kids were raised there, losing my husband at this young, she was like 62. She was just 30
Yeah.
with 2 kids. And my mother's a beautiful woman. I
Yeah.
mean, tall, skinny, long hair, light skin, pretty eyes, the whole thing that you would describe as a beautiful black woman. And she was also mixed. Her mom had Native American, her dad was half white. So she had a really exotic look, my mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody loved it. She was like, you know what? I want to give you folks the life that you'll never get here.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to use my VA and buy a house and picket fence and move to LA and that whole thing. And she did. We went out there and we lived there for about 6.5 years until my grandmother got sick.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were forced to come back and help her. But we had a great time in Southern California from 62 to 68. That was a great time to be in Southern California.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the music alone was, not to mention the hippie movement and anti-war thing. It was a great living there. And that was another reason why when we moved back to New York in late 68, I remember Martin Luther King's funeral was on television at that time. We didn't understand what was really happening. Actually, I said the stupidest thing I ever said in my life that day. Martin Luther King's funeral was on television. And my grandparents were bawling. My mom was bawling. And I'm like this 10 and a half, 11-year-old coming back from Southern California. And I'm like, what's all the big hubbub about? This cat had not done shit for me. I mean, I don't get this. My grandmother didn't talk to me for a month.
Yeah.
And I lived in her house.
Yeah.
You know how uncomfortable that was for me?
I'm sure.
She didn't speak to me for a month. And my grandfather every day would be like, take it easy on this guy. He just got from LA. He doesn't know what's going on. He's 10 years old. He's a loudmouth. Give him a break. My grandmother was like, hell no. She was so hot. I mean, I still feel bad about that, man. My grandma didn't talk to me for a month.
Yeah.
And I lived in her house. She wouldn't even look at me. She was like old school from Georgia, She had been through it in the 20s and 30s. Actually, I've got something on. I don't know if you can see this, but that lone frame over there in the background.
Okay, yeah.
That's from Clark University. It's her diploma from Clark University in Atlanta, circa 1928.
Wow, that's amazing.
I found that and bought a $100 mahogany frame. I said, you know what? You wouldn't do it. I'm going to do it for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to frame it and put it on the wall with all of our accomplishments.
Absolutely.
And all our degrees. And that thing is almost 100 years old.
Yeah, that is amazing.
1928 from Clark College in Atlanta University. She might have been 18 or something back
Yeah,
then. And just graduated. It's a 2-year degree in education,
yeah.
which all of us are in. My wife got a doctorate in education. Myself, actually, my son just got accepted to grad school
Oh, that's
this
great.
week. He
Congrats.
sent me his acceptance this morning to look at. So we're all in the education. My aunt Carolyn Jones was a teacher at one point. She had a degree. She lived over at on Bronxwood for many years. Her son Robert, my cousin, still lives over there, Robert Jones.
Yeah.
And so educational family. In any event, so we come back to the Bronx, and this is the kind of guy you're dealing with, right? As a young guy who just got back from California, who doesn't know much of anything.
Sure.
Didn't know nothing. We're just running around barefoot in LA.
Yeah.
Walking for miles. I mean, on glass, on rocks, barefoot everywhere. We'd walk, I don't know if you know California well, but we'd walk from Firestone Avenue in South Central to Westwood and Compton and Watts and just all over the place. Barefoot kids, fishing crawdads out of the creeks.
Yeah.
So we didn't know much coming to the Bronx because we're Cali kids, actually.
Yeah.
Probably explains my brother's hippiness, which Black people in 1520 did not understand.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They said, this guy, how you going to be a hippie in New York and we're living here in Bronx in 1527? Hippie Stan. Everybody knew Hippie Stan.
That's funny. That's what they called him, huh?
Yeah, Hippie Stan. And Stan looked like Jimi Hendrix. He had big afro, tall, good-looking kid with bell bottoms and flower shirts and all of that. But the thing that I will go back to, because I am all over the place and I understand that, so my apologies.
Oh, no, that's fine. There's a lot that comes out when people, go all over the place that might not come out if they're just going in a straight line. So I like
cool.
People
now, Stan had a group of friends, and this is prior to the fire that filled our building. This building is still empty. Yeah. Right? There was a group of kids up at the University Projects, up on 174th Street at University. There's this, I don't know if they're University Homes or something, University Project. Right
yeah, I think.
And there was a group of kids that hung out together in a big consortium. There was about 30 of them. Mm. And that was their crew. And they hung out and played music and did what kids do and went down to the village and hung out all night. And it was a weird setup because there was Puerto Rican kids, there was Black kids, there were white kids, there were professionals, there were just hippies, bums. It was just like 30 people who came together who hung out. And there's Louis, who I got a job at Roberto Clemente as a state patrolman. Still owes me his first check. Yeah, Louis, talking about you. So if I get you this job, you give me your first check. Sure, dude, sure. They hired him. I never saw the money. Anyway, Chris Polite, Black guy, athlete. Chris Polite was part of that group. Michael Cahill, he used to live up there around Van Cortlandt Park. There was a bunch of kids in that group, white, Black, and they were just great, nice people. They accepted me as Stan's brother as a young guy, a lot younger than them. They were in their teens, and I might have been 13 when I was introduced to this group of people, but they were so nice, and they accepted me, and that's where I learned everything I knew about rock music. That was prior to, you know, hip hop becoming like a really strong, motivating dance force back in the mid 70s.
Sure.
This would have been early 71, 72-ish kind of thing. And went to a lot of concerts with these folks, hung out with them a lot, broke a lot of nights with them in Central Park. I remember this white guy and his girlfriend. She was a beautiful girl too, blonde chick. I don't know her name, but they used to wear suits. I'm like, y'all the only ones in here with suits on. Well, we're coming from work. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense because the rest of them looking kind of bummy, you know. But you guys wearing suits all the time. I don't get that, but they were professionals, whatever the hell they did. But that's the part about the Bronx back in the early 70s in that area that kind of paved the way for this, what would become this culture of hip hop, right? This is the biggest thing that I want to point out to folks is like the culture of hip hop that we have now that's been fueled by entertainment industry is a lot different than what actually took place.
Absolutely.
So when I hear people talk about the culture of hip hop and then go on to show me some of these TV shows about what hip hop is,
yeah,
I don't relate to that.
Yeah,
I'm back to being this ignorant little kid from California. I don't relate to that as being what I grew up in. I relate to the story I just gave you about the Bronx and being, you know, multi-generational and multicultural.
Yeah,
and all kinds of people coming together and being decent with each other and living together in harmony. And that's not what I see from the music industry. So that's the only point I was trying to make is as far as what we have now versus what we had then. What we had then allowed for the type of chilly, cool atmosphere and this culture of hip hop that created the 1520 experience.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me. I forget when the album came out. Maybe in 71 or 72. But there's a group from another part of the Bronx. I think maybe near the area around St. Mary's. A group called the Ghetto Brothers.
yeah.
You ever listen to them before?
I've heard of them. I don't know that I can understand their music. I mean, tell you what songs or anything.
Yeah,
I've
but
heard the Ghetto Brothers.
I think they only put out one album, but you know, it's an album that it's mostly Puerto Rican guys that were in the band, but it's, you know, kind of rock, a little folk, like you know, there's some Latin influence, and I don't think that they, you know, necessarily had any direct influence on any of the people involved in hip hop in that area, but I feel like they're representative of the culture of the Bronx. That's, you know, this kind of very multinational, very like you know, taken really appreciating all kinds of different music and culture, and their whole shtick was you know, to try to bring peace to the various you know, various people, especially teenagers at the time, who might be fighting each other. But yeah, I think they're another kind of example aside from hip hop of what the Bronx was all about at that time.
Absolutely. Because I remember early on, we went up to Van Cortlandt Park, about 10 of us, to play football. You know, just throw the football around and get on to some grass and have some fun. And so there was a group of white kids out there who said, well, yeah, let's play, y'all. We'll play, y'all. You know, this is our park. I mean, let's play.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, cool. And so we ended up beating the hell out of them in this football game. And so they left. We went to the store to get some pops or whatever before we take the trip home. And here they come running down the street with garbage cans and bats and everything else. They want to take at us.
Yeah.
So we scattered. I remember me and two other cats ran up the subway, elevated subway there, and just made it in the doors and got out of there. I don't know what happened to everybody else, but they didn't really like that whole idea of
Yeah.
us coming up there, beating them at football. So there was a little bit of that. I think it was more so from from my experience, it was a little bit more of that from the white community.
Yeah.
And my own community, because my own community was actually everybody was treating us good during that period. So that was kind of weird, actually, for that to happen like that, for these folks to just get so pissed and come at us like that for losing a football game, really?
Yeah.
But we were in their community and at their park, and they didn't really like that whole lot, So that was one of the few times, let me make that clear, that anything like that ever happened to me in the Bronx. The Bronx has always been a welcoming space, I think about my grandmother's building, another name comes to pass is a kid I used to hang out with in Olinville back in the late 60s, Tommy Fitzpatrick Fitzgerald. First time I ever heard a hyphenated name. I didn't get that. Like, how you going to be Fitzpatrick and Fitzgerald?
Yeah.
My mother it is, and my dad, part, whatever. Okay, whatever. But Tommy Fitzpatrick Fitzgerald was a really cool kid that I hung out with. Another story, from Olinville. I told you about how my grandparents got robbed and all the black people were put on the top floor after that.
Yeah.
There was a kid up there that I hung out with for a couple of years while we lived there, from 68 to 70. His name was Victor Collymore. Turns out Victor Collymore is a medical doctor from Columbia. I think he's moved back to New York, but he was in Washington up to last year.
Oh, wow.
He was working at my neighborhood hospital where his neighbor, my grandfather, died.
That's crazy.
He was working at St. Joseph's Hospital during the time my grandfather died at that hospital, way the hell out here in Washington.
That's crazy.
I was like, are you serious? And as I looked through his stuff, I think on LinkedIn, I said, he was here when my grandfather died. Wow, his neighbor. So again, it's a small world. The Bronx is a vast place when it comes down to it.
I know the Bronx is everywhere. I mean, there's so many people that are famous that you start looking, and turns out they're from the Bronx, or they lived in the Bronx a long time. They might even be buried in the Bronx. Cicely Tyson is buried here in the Bronx, and she lived in the Bronx for a while. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and most of the news coverage on her just associates her with living in Harlem at some point, which she did. But she also lived in the Bronx for a long time. So that's that. I haven't checked that independently, but that's what I've heard from a few people.
The two Bronx stories around celebrity that I'm familiar with is one, there was a cat that used to hang with my brother up in the projects at university, white cat, I forget his name, but he lived in a building. This is about to go off and I don't want to hear that. He lived in a building right across the street from Poe Park, up on Valentine Avenue.
Yeah.
Poe Park. He lived in a building there, and we should go hang out with him. And he used to show us the imprint of the old lady who died on his wood floor. She must have been there so long that she stained the wood floor.
Oh my God.
And he's like, look at that. And I'm like, dude, that's a body outline, bro.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. The old lady died here, and they didn't find her for months, So
oh my God.
That was one story. It was hard to hang out and drink beers with that old lady looking at you.
Absolutely.
Another Bronx story around celebrities is when we went to Taft, no, junior high school 82
Mm.
on East Tremont and University. Early back in the day, like 71 or something. When you go out in the back of it, it's still the same setup right now. I could Google Earth, it shows you everything about everything.
Yeah.
It's still the same setup now with the playground in the back of the school and everything. So we'd be back there playing, and then all of a sudden, this giant man would come out of the building right there. His name was Eddie Carmel.
Huh.
Eddie Carmel was like the biggest man in the world at that time, like 8 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. And Eddie Carmel used to go to doctor's appointments in the afternoon. They used to come with a stretch station wagon to pick him up. That's the only way he could fit in there, was a stretch station wagon. And Eddie Carmel was a big man. Actually, if you Google him, there's some really good pictures of Eddie Carmel in that building at his home.
Oh, wow. Look that up.
Which is right behind junior high school 82. I think that's what, I don't want to guess what street that is, but yeah. And so we would be back there playing, and then everything would stop, and all the kids would run to the fence because this giant man, they would be like, "The monster's coming!" And everybody would run over there, and he would play it up too. He would just go, "Rah!" and wave his hand across like that with this big hand, and then everybody would scream and run the other way, you know. And I think
funny.
he just did that to just say, "Okay, I'm a monster. Okay, I'll be a monster for you." You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it turned out Eddie Carmel was a young guy. I thought he was an old man, but I think he died in his early 20s.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was a young cat, but he was a big old dude. Yeah, Eddie Carmel. He used to live right there. And actually, the story was that they took this Bronx apartment that he was in on the first floor and cut the ceiling out to the apartment above so that he could walk around. I don't know how true that is, but in looking at some of the old pictures of him at home, it actually does look like he's standing up pretty comfortably.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be too hard for him, I think.
Yeah, he probably would be right on top of his head with the floor.
Yeah.
You know, but he looks like there was a lot of room in there for that big man. But yeah, that was our claim to fame for our little area, was Eddie Carmel. He was a circus performer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he lived right there, you know. So, but in any event, that's kind of what was going on around that neighborhood. But getting back to the whole 1520 experience,
Sure.
The building was a place that incorporated a lot of these communal type experiences. And so I don't remember a time in that building where people were at each other's throats, fighting too much or at all for a lot of portion. Now, then there was a small group of Puerto Rican kids that lived on Undercliff Avenue. I remember one guy, was a really nice guy named Albie. And Albie had a massive burn on his face and his neck and his chest. I think he had been in a fire or something.
Yeah.
He was the nicest kid in the world. And he used to play with us, with his small group of Puerto Rican kids. And one of the Puerto Rican kids that used to come through there, I think was a friend of Albie's, his name was Pito. And Pito had a birth defect where the right arm was like 10 inches long.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
And the left arm was regular. But Pito was an athlete, okay? That didn't stop him from being the best athlete that we had. The story was that Pito went on to play varsity baseball at Clinton.
Oh, wow.
And that they were looking at him as some minor league team. I mean, with the little short arm.
Yeah.
Pito was an athlete. And these cats used to play with a small handful of us uh, down on Sedgwick. Uh, Another athlete was my friend Bernard. He just passed away. Bernard Butone. He was an athlete. He was a runner, baseball, basketball. Bernard was an ultimate athlete. Fastest guy in the neighborhood. He's been challenged many a times to run against other guys. I remember when they were building 1600, there was a guy, a young black guy, nice Jamaican fellow. His name was Winston Keynes. And Winston Keynes was the security guard when they were building 1600 next door. You know, protecting the property and materials and stuff at night. He used to stay over there all the time in this little trailer. And Winston was a little bit older than us, but he was a really nice guy. And he was a faster runner. I remember him and Bernard challenged each other one day. I wish the Olympics was around to see that, because these two guys were incredible athletes, super fast. Yeah, as it turns out, back in the late, let me get this timing of this right. I'm gonna say the early to mid 90s. I was at Six Flags in Atlanta. We were visiting Atlanta because we had lived there in the 80s, and we were going back there to visit my aunt and uncle or whatever. And we were at Six Flags, you know, amusement park.
Sure.
And we were on a log fume ride. We're in the line, actually. It's hot as all hell in Atlanta in August, okay?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Getting ready to get on this log fume ride. And I hear this guy coming the other way. I said, Fred. Turned out it was Winston. Winston and the family, you know, at the log fume ride in Atlanta Six Flags. I run into the old friend and security guy.
Had he moved to Atlanta, or he was just visiting?
He was online. He was coming out of the ride as I was waiting to go in. So he was coming out with his family, and I was waiting to go in with mine. Yeah. And, you know, we kind of pass each other that way. And he's Fred. I'm like, Winston? I'm like, oh, my God, are you serious? I hadn't seen Winston since I was a youngster before I left New York in 77. So I might have seen Winston. 72 was when I was friends with him. Yeah. So we're talking at least 20 years later. He recognized me in line at the log fume in Atlanta. The Bronx is a vast place. I can't tell you how many people that I know from the Bronx or ran into or heard stories about. Yeah. You know. So yeah, he used to be the security guard when they were building 1520, and he was instrumental in our development too, because we used to go hang out with Winston. Yeah, he was like a little bit older than us. He had a job. He was a really nice, handsome guy. And so he used to tell us about women, how you need to treat women. And so we learned a lot, because a lot of us didn't have no dads. I for sure didn't, you know, and my brother was too busy raising himself and hanging out with his friends to kind of help me. You know, so Winston was really instrumental in our development, in that he would sit down and talk to us about how to treat women, you know. Don't listen to all this. Don't be treating them foul. I've seen a beautiful bald eagle going by. Oh, wow. Yeah. He was always really nice about trying to tell us how to treat people. And that's another, see, this is kind of where we grew up, in that neighborhood. Sure. People cared about each other, and they wanted people to do the right thing. And I also think about the women that I went to school with there, back in even junior high school. Like, these women were like, what's the word? I don't want to say, no, I'm not going to say that. But they were untouchable, right? Yeah. They weren't sleeping around. They weren't trying to get into no men's face. If anything, they were trying to stay away from us little grimy son of a gun who were trying to talk to them and kiss them and touch them and everything. They wasn't having any of that. They had a lot of morals these young women did back then. I don't know about right now. I've been out of the market for so long. I don't know what they're doing now. But back then, they had a lot of respect for themselves and a lot of morals. They
Sure.
wasn't about running around with people and getting boyfriends and all. Okay, so there was a girl I thought I liked in 1600 one day. Her name was Sandra. Sandra used to live on the second floor of her mom. Single mom, single kid. Sandra's a beautiful girl. And so I said, I'm going to go try to talk to Sandra. I'm going to go visit her. And since she won't come out the house, I'm going to go to her house and visit her. I knocked on the door. Sandra's mother's like, what do you want? I'm like, oh my God, here we go. I was like, nothing. I just came to, talk to Sandra. Well, let me tell you, Sandra is going places in her life.
Yeah.
She read me up and down. Look, she's going places in her life. She doesn't have time to be messing around with these hoods like you, neighborhood kids who are just hanging out, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, give me a break. I'm like 15 or so, whatever, So she says, like, okay, you see right here inside of my front door, there was a little card table with 2 chairs.
Yeah.
She said, you want to come in and talk to Sandra? You sit right here and do that. So I was forced to whatever conversation I was trying to have with Sandra to sit at this little card table right within the front door. She didn't even close the front door. She left it open. I guess because I wasn't going to be there very long. She left the front door open and said, you have this conversation with her here.
Yeah.
Because this is the kind of woman that I'm trying to bring up, and I'm not going to allow some little punk like you to come in and ruin what I have planned for Sandra. And I'm like, my goodness. I mean, this is what we're up against in this day and time. Right? These parents wasn't having, a lot of them wasn't having that.
Yeah, sure.
Their kids, they wanted more for their children. They didn't, they would talk down. I remember my wife's dad used to call kids cockroaches. He's like, he's a cockroach. Because they don't want anything. They're going around, they got gold teeth, they got, just the way they presenting themselves. They just really didn't appreciate how a lot of the young people in the mid-'80s anyways were presenting themselves.
Yeah.
He grew up an old guy who came from Jamaica, who worked hard to do the right thing and to raise all of his kids and send them to school in Jamaica and everything else.
Yeah.
He busted his chops. Actually, this old guy was many things. Restaurant owner up in White Plains. He was a master tailor. He was a boxing promoter, actually. He worked with Ali and Frazier and all of these cats. I remember when he died, he was on the Frank Bruno team getting ready to head over to England for a championship fight that Frank Bruno was having, I guess, against Tim Witherspoon or something. He was working for Don King during that time, Monarch Boxing, Orwell, Ohio. He was on the Don King team as one of his, Ren Morgan was his name. And I learned a lot from my wife's dad, Ren Morgan. He was a classy guy who worked his butt off and taught himself a lot of different things. He's also a master baker. Oh. He was the head chef baker on the USS United States, massive cruise ship.
Wow.
Back in the mid-'50s. He was the head chef baker for that. So this guy taught himself a lot of things and excelled in a lot of things. And these were the kind of people in our upbringing that were talking to us and trying to peep game, as they say on the streets, and try to help you understand how to make something out of your life. And I don't know that that's still prevalent nowadays for a lot of my young brothers and sisters, to have these role models that who've been there, who've done it, who work hard. I'm talking about in your community, not somebody to look at on television.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Made it and figured out how to do things well. These people lived in the community, cared, and would take you under their wing and say, look, you're not doing the right thing. Kind of like Miss Jones did to me, Bernard's mother. You're not doing the right thing. You're not going to school. You're not doing what you need to do. And I'm going to step in and make sure you do that.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad she did. But I'm just saying, these are the kind of, this is the environment that you had in the Bronx back in the early 70s. People really cared about what was happening to their community and to the people there. You know, I remember there was a small group of women in 1520 Sedgwick. They were part of a group, I don't know if they still have this, but it was called United Bronx Parents.
Yeah, it's still around. It's still around, yeah.
Good. Yes, they used to get us jobs in the summer, either being an activity assistant at one of the local summer schools or making school lunches at Horn and Hardoff's on the third shift in the middle of the night, making 15, 20 bucks an hour.
Yeah.
Back in the early 70s for a teenager, believe me, was a good thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were making money and we were working. Yeah, it was late at night. It was third shift, but it was also fun. You know, me and a crew of individuals were working all night. I remember me, Stevie Bates, and Elvis. I don't remember Elvis's last name, but Elvis went to high school with us, and he used to live up on Popham Avenue. Me, Elvis, and Stevie one night were working at Horn and Ardagh, making sound with Keith David, who recently died. Love you, Keith. Of COVID, that's my man. He was working there too. His mother actually helped get us a job. Stevie Bates' mother, Barbara Bates, and Keith David's mother, Miss Helen David, who I love, Miss Helen, that was my girl. They got us these jobs.
Wow.
Making these sandwiches, man. Beautiful women. They were great. And they cared about us. Again, a group of parents who cared about the kids in the neighborhood and found us these jobs, making all of this money, making sandwiches.
Yeah, yeah.
In the middle of the night for summer school. And so that was another example of the community coming together to help educate and give us something to look forward to in this environment. And I remember one night, me, Stevie, and Elvis, we got off work, and I guess we had some extras that we had taken home with us. Shopping bags full of cheese and meat and orange juice and all of this. So we get home, we get over there by your job, over there by the Bronx Zoo.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
We decided we're going to cut through the Bronx Zoo, because now it's early in the morning, they're open. So we're going to cut through Bronx Zoo to get over to the west side. And so we stopped at the elephant exhibit, and the elephant came over to us and was looking at us. And then all out of nowhere, this son of a gun sticks his nose through the gate and takes the shopping bag from Elvis, the food in, takes the shopping bag, and then, you know, like those little tiny Tropicana juices, they're in a little plastic and they're tiny.
Yeah.
He starts stepping on them and snorting up orange juice in his nose. Weirdest thing you ever saw in your life.
Oh my God.
A Bronx tale. This guy's stepping on orange juices and snorting them up his nose. And then he takes out this 10-pound block of cheese, starts eating it. Plastic and everything. So the zookeeper runs out and starts hitting him with this chain. I thought that was kind of cold-blooded.
Yeah, yeah.
Starts hitting him with this chain. Stop. And then they finally got the bag and the juices and stuff from him. But
You just
we got jacked by an elephant.
That's funny.
We got jacked by an elephant in
Oh,
Bronx.
no. Oh
We
my,
didn't have to worry so much about the community, but the elephant for sure jacked
gotta
us.
watch out for the elephant. Yeah.
Yeah, he took our stuff, but you know, this was all because of some caring group of women who, when 1520, who found us these jobs. Either was working at these schools or making these lunches, man, and that was a good thing for us because we didn't have much of anything else
Sure.
to sustain us. So yeah, I think we could probably just close on just trying to remind people that this whole idea of this culture of hip hop was derived from a caring community of like-minded individuals, hardworking individuals, uh, white, black, and Puerto Rican individuals. And my hope is that this is the same community that we have now in the Bronx, right? I don't hear a lot of drama coming out of the Bronx or a
No,
lot of,
not really.
yeah, it
You
seems
know,
like
but
we're, yeah, you know, there's always going to
always
be
gonna be.
some. Yeah, there's always going to be some, but I think that we're back to a place where we started from. So when I personally would ask people to reject some of the current characterizations of what hip hop is. Maybe it is now, but understand it wasn't always that way. You know, there was plenty of goodness, hardworking people who wanted the best for themselves. It wasn't all about how much money one person could make or the drug game and all of that. All of those things have always existed. Actually, it's affected a lot of us, myself included.
Yeah.
But there's a way out of that and to be a better person. And so I hope that my story encourages people to think about the good, how the Bronx could elevate you, not drag you down. Because the industry will show you all about how the music and how hip hop can drag your ass down
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
you at odds with your neighbor or a competing musical artist, or it's not always about putting each other at odds. A lot of times it's about how we can elevate each other. And that's a lot of the work that I do now and have done for the past 40 years, is to talk to young people like I'm talking to you today, being real honest about my own experiences, but yet at the same time sharing the fact that there's ways out of this and there's ways to educate yourself, and there are great role models out here. Not all of the people in your life have to bring you down, and that's unfortunate that the closest people to us are the ones that hurt us the most, not because they want to, but because we love them and we care about them, and what they do and say matter.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody around you that's just really not positive, don't hold them against them. Help educate them, but make sure that you keep yourself straight and realize there's a better way. And I'll go back to one last story that I told before, and that was living in the Bronx, Sedgwick Ave, 1520. Wasn't a whole lot going on for none of us. But the thing is, I had grandparents who used to send me postcards
Yeah. From
from
all over.
around the world. And I would say to myself, one day I'm going to make it to these places and I'm going to do these things. And this is going to be a good thing for me. And I have gone to those places, some of those places, and I have found a better way to live my life over the past 50 years. And you can do that too. So stay positive, surround yourself with people that elevate you and want you to do well. Help the people around you that aren't doing well and help elevate them. And we can all save each other. We can all be okay. And I want to thank you, Dr. Stephen Payne, for connecting with me about my grandfather's legacy, spending the time with me to listen to my boring stories.
Oh, they're not boring at all. I love hearing them.
Thank you for your assistance, and I hope that we come across with the whole idea that I was trying to get across is that this Bronx, this community is a wonderful community. There's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot of elevation in it. There's people like you who work every day to educate people. Educate yourself, folks. Or
Yeah.
if you can't, go to Fordham University and talk to some of the cats like Dr. Payne who are educating people every day. That's what I encourage people to do too, is engage with us educators. If you want to learn, engage with educators. These are the people who know stuff.
Yeah, and learn these stories that might not get all the media attention, this or that, but it's really the core of what makes the Bronx, is all of these people, showing creativity and resilience and perseverance, even in sometimes the worst situations.
Absolutely. Because my mother, she was a school teacher. She didn't make a lot of money. She was a widowed young. She had a couple of her own little problems, money and everything else. But she never missed a day of work. Never missed a day of work.
Yeah.
I don't care if she stayed up all night drinking and partying with her friends the night before. She never missed a day at work. In fact, we used to be threatened. If you ever get me called off of my job, I'm going to miss a day of work. I got to pay for the substitute to come and replace me. And so that's 2 days of my check I'm not going to get. And I only get paid once a month. So you don't even understand how important this is to me. And that happened one time where they called my mother off of her job to come over to PS 41, and I was in 5th grade, to come and talk to me because the lady there, she was the discipline lady. She was also the librarian. Her name was Miss Fox. I'll never forget Miss Fox. Miss Fox called my mother to school because of me. And my mother came to our class, and I'm standing in front of the door, and my teacher's trying to explain what's going on. And I must have said something. I must have said anything and got slapped backhanded, pow, right there in front of my whole class. They're laughing. Oh my God. My mother was hot. She was not for hearing me saying nothing. You called me off from my job for this craziness. You just not listening. You're not paying attention. She slapped me right in front of my classmates, and they all started laughing so much, but she wasn't playing. She was hot. She was hot when she got over there. You called me off my job because you're not paying attention, really? And so as violent as that was, and people probably don't understand it these days, but that's the kind of stuff that stopped me from doing it 2 days in a row.
Yeah. Well, here now, I think the widespread thing in the Bronx is the chancleta. Have you heard of that before?
No.
I think typically either Puerto Rican or Dominican moms sandal, chancleta.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know it was called that, but I've heard of the shoe game too. Yeah. I've had a couple of shoes myself. I got slapped one time by my aunt with her big ass 5-carat diamond wedding ring on, split my lower lip in half.
Yeah.
I'm talking about blood all over the place. And it never happened twice.
Yeah.
She used to say, "You want the ring? Do you want the ring?" And I knew what that meant. No. I don't want the ring, thank you. I've had enough of that ring. Okay?
Yeah, for a life.
Yeah, back in the day, they didn't play like that. You listen or you pay the consequence. And I've paid a lot of consequence by being talkative, know-it-all, square-headed knucklehead. I paid a lot of consequence that way. But it only had to happen once. And I knew I didn't want the ring. I didn't want my mother coming to my school, getting called off a job. I didn't want my grandmother mad at me about nothing.
Yeah.
I kiss her butt every day. You know what? I'm not going to ever have you mad at me again, never.
Yeah,
So, you do learn from your mistakes. I would hope that be the case for all of us. Learn from your mistakes and try not to do it twice.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, that's all I can say.
Absolutely. Uh, a couple small questions that I am curious about. One, you started to bring up a little bit, but it's one
Okay.
of my favorite questions, which is, what kinds of foods do you remember growing up? Uh, you
Oh,
you mentioned the grits and the chorizo, which
yeah,
sounds like the
yeah,
breakfast of champions. But what else did your
yeah.
mom cook or your grandparents?
Okay. I'll start with my grandmother. My grandmother was from Georgia. She was born in South Carolina, but she was raised in Georgia. And so she was a Southern lady.
Mm,
And so I remember, and plus she was a world traveler.
yeah.
So my grandmother would make cow tongue. My grandmother would make lamb brain. I mean, all of these weird things from the old South that they used to eat back in the old South.
Yeah, whatever you could.
She wouldn't really try to feed us that. That was some of the stuff that she liked to make for herself.
Yeah,
You want to try it? No, I don't. I don't do the brains
yeah,
thing. But at the same time, she was a very good cook and a world travel. We used to spend Thanksgivings over her house. So the traditional Thanksgiving, top to bottom, she can do that. But I remember instinctively that she would make stuff like rice aruba.
mm,
Was a dish she found in Aruba, which is basically fried rice with meat and vegetables. Throw whatever you got
yeah.
in it and fry it up. Delicious. Rice Aruba was one of her favorites. Another thing she used to make was the first time and the last time I've had this was a roasted rack of lamb.
Mm,
Oh my.
yeah.
Oh my. Garlic and olive oil and the whole thing. Oh my. That was incredible. I haven't had
Sounds
that
like it.
since.
Yeah.
First or since I haven't had that. So she was all over the place in terms of her cooking prowess. My grandmother could make anything. And you wouldn't know where the hell it came from. Uh, my grandfather, he used to work the 3 a.m. to 2 o'clock in the afternoon shift. So he's a guy you'd see frying an egg at 1 o'clock in the morning on his way to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't get him. He wasn't a great cook. Now my mother, she was a single mom. So she didn't spend a whole lot of time. It was like you take out a frozen food, make a hot dog, or get away from me. She would cook on the weekends
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
she had time. And she was really good at, like, we used to get the fried fish, the frozen fish from the Nation of Islam brother Stephen.
Mm,
Used to bring it on Saturday mornings. Used to bring the whiting H&G. It was in a package. It was flash frozen. These beautiful whiting fillets
yeah.
in there. And I used to say, what's H&G? Turns out it was headed and gutted. So
Mm,
they were cleaned, filleted, and ready to go. So she used to fry the whiting and make a mean spaghetti on the weekend on Fridays. We used to have that on Fridays. There was some other stuff that she could get down on. Breakfast was okay. She used to make a good lasagna, fried chicken,
yeah.
really killer fried chicken. There was some stuff. But like I said, it was the weekend game because during the week, when she's working and going across town every day, and then she was also a student at night, getting her master's degree at Mount St. Vincent College,
Yeah.
really didn't have a whole lot of time for that cooking craziness.
For sure.
Get something, make a sandwich, make a hot dog. During the week, it's kind of on our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weekends, she was good. But then when she got involved with Vince and Stewart, Mary Lynch's cousin, and they started going out. He started living with us.
Mm.
Vincent was a soul food cook.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This guy can burn, okay? There's nothing this guy could not make. All the soul food dishes, yams, everything from chitlins to greens to fish to ain't nothing Vince couldn't make.
Yeah.
Vincent introduced me to my perfect egg that I'm still looking for today.
Oh yeah, what egg is that?
That is over medium with butter, gelatinous, not runny. It's got to be perfect. Got to be perfect.
Yeah.
You might get one squirt of run, but mostly gelatinous, buttery, cooked on both sides. Perfect egg.
Oh,
And I still look for that, and they can't do it like Vince. Because Vince used the lard. And something about the lard and a slow cook and a perfect flip and the timing. Oh, that egg was incredible.
it sounds like it. Man.
Yeah. So I'm still looking for that egg. And I'm still looking for Miss Jones's coconut oatmeal cookies. I'm an oatmeal fanatic when it comes to cookies. And there's a reason for that. Because Miss Jones, when I come home in the afternoon, I can smell these oatmeal coconut cookies emanating, wafting through the air, coming up from the 15th floor. And I'd look over, she'd be out on the deck smoking a cigarette, taking a break. She said, "You smell my cookies, huh, Fred?" Like, yeah. She said, "Come on down here. You know you want a couple." I'm like, hell yeah. I run down there and get some of Miss Jones cookies, and I'm still looking for those 15F, was her apartment in 1520. Miss Jones's oatmeal coconut cookies. I'm still looking for that cookie today and can't find it.
Oh man.
I keep saying I'm trying to make them, but I know I couldn't do that. Because they were like buttery and they were really crunchy and had the coconut in there and the real oatmeal, cracked oatmeal. Oh my God, these cookies were incredible.
Oh wow.
Into cinnamon, you could smell them in the air. And I'd like lean over the thing like, and she'd be standing up there smoking a cigarette. Come on, you know you want some. I'm gonna tell you. So yeah, the food. You're damn right. Yeah, so the food, that kind of where my food game comes from. My Vince and my grandmother were very instrumental in that. And Rita had a couple good things too, like her chicken and her fish was incredible too. Yeah, so in terms of food, that's where I come. And my wife's dad, Ren Morgan, I was talking about, he owned a Jamaican restaurant up on Gun Hill for many years. This guy could burn too. And he taught my wife how to cook. She know how to get down too in the kitchen. Ain't nothing she can't cook neither. I'm talking about jerk chicken with the Jamaican rice and beans, Thanksgiving, you name a meal, my wife could cook. I mean, she kills it. She kills it.
Were there any Jamaican bakeries in the neighborhood at that point yet?
No, a couple up on the Gun Hill way.
Oh yeah,
there was a couple. But not like there is now. I mean, like there's a million of them up there now.
Yeah, there are. They're all over the place. So,
yeah, there was one or two. The thing I do remember about food actually in that neighborhood was there was a big Italian restaurant at the bottom of the train station there. I think there's a dialysis place there now at the bottom of the train station at Gun Hill and White Plains there on that corner, on that round corner. There was a big Italian restaurant there for many years that was incredible. They had great food in there. And also, too, across the street from Immaculate Conception Church, there's a new little building on that little spot there. But there was a drive-through burger joint with the clown. Which one was that?
With the clown, huh?
Yeah, you used to talk into the clown's mouth when you drove up to oh my goodness.
Let me think here.
I can't, but it was the clown, and you could talk to the clown. Actually, they ended up knocking that down or stealing or something. But it was a clown, like a plastic clown. You talk to the clown when you drive up to it. It was a drive-through burger joint way back in the day, even before we knew it. I was surprised that can't think of the name of this damn clown, but
Is it Wedsons? Is that? I know that
West. I don't know.
Wedsons. I think they had a clown. I don't know. I don't think they're around anymore. But that was some fast
Now
food.
this was a national brand. Was it a clown or was it a big boy? I think it was a clown. Big boy was in L.A. They had this big boy.
Yeah.
And he was stood up there. He was huge, this big old guy on the end of Firestone Boulevard over there by the train tracks. No, this was a clown. I want to say, I think Carl's Jr. started out with a clown. Was
Oh,
it Carl? Was it Carl? Something like that. It was a clown. And there
yeah.
was a turnaround right across the street from Immaculate Conception Church. Because I had a friend who I spent the night with over there one time hanging out. He was an artist, kid named Shelly Barker.
Huh.
Skinny kid with wavy hair. He went to 41 with me. And that was one of the kids I got really close with. Spent that night over his house one night. We're both artists. He was a much better artist than me. He was like a sci-fi artist, Shelly Barker. And I spent that night over his house. He lived nearby this clown turnaround burger drive-through, which I thought was kind of strange because nobody owned cars.
Yeah.
I knew of anyway.
Yeah,
We didn't own cars. But they had a drive-through burger joint with this damn clown. I can't remember what the name was. I want to keep going back to Carl's. No, some clown. I don't know.
I'm sure I could find it in the phone book from like, I don't know, 75 or 76 or something like that.
Okay, yeah, it was a drive-through burger joint across from Immaculate Conception Church and it was a drive-through, and you could talk to this clown and order food, and which I thought was weird because again, nobody owned a car, right? Who was doing that? So in terms of food, that was important to us. Okay, so important to me.
Yeah.
Food-wise, and I'm still looking for this too, is the perfect lemonade. You know who had the perfect lemonade? Palisades Amusement Park.
Oh, yeah?
In Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Back in the day when Palisades Amusement Park was open, that was a short ride from New York to get over across to Palisades Amusement Park. They had the best lemonade in the world. I'm still trying to perfect that. My wife laughs at me because I've tried many ingredients to get to that. And I think I'm there. What it is per gallon of fresh squeezed lemons, you get, you're making a gallon of juice. You use your fresh squeezed lemons. I'm thinking 5. There's two drops of vanilla and a dash of lemongrass. I think that's the move. That's about as close as I got to it.
Yeah.
2 drops of vanilla per gallon and a dash of lemongrass. That was the closest I got to this perfect lemonade. Okay. Need sugar to taste. I like mine sweet, but yeah, they had the best lemonade in the world, Palisades Amusement Park. And across the street from High Bridge Swimming Pool, there used to be a tiny little storefront store. They used to sell hamburgers, these tiny little hamburgers for 25 cents for 2. And then they used to sell cookies and French fries. Uh-huh. So depending on how much money you have, if you have 50 cents, you can get 2 hamburgers, cookies, and a French fry.
Yeah.
I think the cookies were 10 and the French fries were 15. And then you can get the 2 hamburgers for, so 50 cents, you could go all in.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you can have a quarter and get some French fries and a couple cookies after your swim. So in terms of food, that was highly important. Later on in the late 70s, of course, in Harlem, you had Sherman's Barbecue and shit like that. That was, there was a good diner on 125th Street and 8th, Amsterdam Avenue on the far end. There was Tom Ford's. That was the name of it. Tom Ford's. Tom Ford's Deli. They had a beautiful little restaurant there where you could get any deli food, restaurant, breakfast, all of that. Tom Ford's was good. That was important. And also, too, was important in the early 70s. And you would have to go to Harlem, but that's where we went anyway, was the Nation of Islam used to have steak and take. They used to make these steak sandwiches with fresh steak and onions and green pepper and cheddar cheese on a hoagie roll. Oh my God, those things were incredible. So
did you ever eat their pies or ever get their pies?
Yes. They had the bean pie, which was also, the fish sandwich was good too.
Yeah.
Don't play, the fish sandwich was great too. Yes, all of it, anything there was clean, was healthy, was fresh. And that's one of the things that my group of people in my age group were attracted to, and probably still are, is that the Nation of Islam, whether you believed in everything they believed in or not, was kind of irrelevant, because the way that they projected themselves and the way that they maintained character and reverence was impressive, and still is to this day. Impressive how they don't allow for their people to fall down. Okay, they don't. They pick them up and they nurture them, and they build community around them. And they've done that with everybody, including, people who've had criminal backgrounds in prison. Nation of Islam is huge. Why? Because they changed lives that way. So like I said, it's not a political discussion at all. This is about how they approach life and try to better themselves and bring themselves up. So that was real important to people in my age group growing up in New York. Was to see Black people who weren't druggies, pimps, prostitutes, hoes, all this kind of shit. These are people who had businesses, who had jobs, who were working every day. And like when Brother Stephen with the fish, right? 10 o'clock, he wouldn't be past 10:05 on a Saturday morning. And Son of Gun was at the front door with our order. With a bow tie, with a suit, crisp white shirt, white teeth, clear eyes, giving us a good morning. Here's your order. Sorry I'm late. It's 10:05. My bad. I got held up on the bus. And we're like, dude, no, man, you are so good. So
it's for Saturday morning,
Saturday morning when everybody else is asleep. And I say the same thing about Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not a religious thing at all for me. It's a character thing. Me personally, am not getting up on no Saturday morning, putting on no suit to talk to nobody about what I believe. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I'm going to lay in as long as I can until some breakfast is coming my way. And then maybe read the newspaper and hang out and watch some TV or something first. I'm not that guy. So people who can do that and get up, whether you believe them or not, they come and knocking on your door to talk to you about what they believe. My wife said, why you let them in? Why are you talking to them so much? If you're not really gonna entertain them and go to their church. And I'm like, it's not about whether I go to their church or believe what they're saying. It's giving them the opportunity to do what they do. And that is get up and share their beliefs with somebody else. And I want to at least give them the opportunity to do that. Not slam the door in their face like everybody be trying to do to them. That's not fair. So it's all about character and resilience too. And that's one of the things I learned from growing up in that environment from people, is that that's all you really have in the end. is
Yeah,
your character. And so it's how do you project yourself, really.
definitely.
You started out with food, dude, and I went all off on this whole.
Oh, this is good. Were there do you th- were there many people in 1520 Sedgwick itself who were Black Muslims, or mostly outside people coming in for deliveries and things like that?
There, I don't know about Black Muslims particularly, but there were some Black people who were Muslims, yes.
Ah, okay, okay, but maybe not members of the Nation of
Maybe
Islam.
not the NOI, yeah, the Nation of Islam, which is a whole sect. I
Yeah,
don't know what people believe, but there's a very famous group of Muslims in our building. And there you can find them anywhere. That's the Dean family.
mm.
Dean family created Rough Riders music.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah,
That's Eve. That's Jadakiss. There's just
yeah,
some huge acts that the Dean family, Terrence, who I grew up with, Terrence Dean, they created later on in life a huge musical empire.
yeah.
I believe they grew up in the Muslim faith.
Okay, I see. Yeah, yeah,
So that's one family I can think of. I'm sure there's plenty others. My friend Bootsy was a Muslim. He wouldn't eat a lot of things that we were partaking in. You know, he kept his diet clean and fresh and stayed away from pork and all kinds of. There was a couple Muslim families. Absolutely, that wasn't strange to us. That was part of our life. It's
yeah.
just like Christians. Mhm.
Absolutely. What about I guess since there were some at least a small number of West Indians in the building, were there any Rastas that you remember?
That's a darn good question. Rastas, not that I remember, not traditional long dread,
Yeah.
Wapman, Rastaman, like my wife's family in Jamaica and
Yeah,
in Gun Hill. We got some Rastas,
for sure.
Blues, and there's some other brothers, but no, not in our building. I can't remember
Yeah.
any straight up Rastas. No.
There's a great little Ital market off White Plains Road called HIM, His Imperial Majesty Ital Market. They got I I'm originally from just a mile from Louisiana in Texas, and we do things pretty Cajun in that part of Texas still. And one of the things that I was missing when I first moved to this part of the country was coffee with chicory. And the only place I could find chicory in all of the Bronx was, this Ital Market, which has any herb you can imagine.
I bet.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
That's cool. I've never even heard of that
yeah,
chicory.
yeah.
I
I
was
don't know why people. I don't know why Cajuns add it to coffee, but it's supposed to mellow it out some. But
I'm still freaking out about when I was a youngster, my grandfather making hominy, like straight hominy, big chunky, big. I'm like, what the heck is this? He's like, yeah, this is what they make grits out of. Like,
yeah,
dude, just give me grits, bro, because this, I don't know what this is. It's hominy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Food was the big thing was, especially around uh, the Gun Hill Olinville area, was these hero sandwiches back in
Yeah,
the day with the seeded sesame seed Italian loaf with the meat and cheese and lettuce and whatnot. I used to like mine with a little mayo,
yeah,
American cheese, lettuce, tomato, salt, pepper, maybe turkey, ham, whatever, cheese. And these things used to go for like 55 cents for a whole loaf laid out. You could double meat for 70 cents.
yeah.
I'm talking about a whole 12, that's even bigger than 12. I'm about 18 inches long, chock full for 55, 70 cents. That used to be the move back then. But
Wow.
that was a lot of money back then too, right?
Yeah, for
70
sure.
cents was pretty good.
Way more than way more than it sounds now, of course, because I think I'm trying to remember. I know my father-in-law was telling me. I think he said he used to get a whole pie for, I don't remember if it was like $1 or something, but I'm sure that's would have been like what 12 or 13 something now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it was $2 for slice used to be a 15 cents, 25 cents. I remember
Yeah,
going that far back, and then it's kind of like the Subway used to be 15 cents that
yeah,
I remember, and then it went progressively up from there. Like boom, 50 cents. Whoa, $1. Now it's $2. I was like, because we talked to my wife's sister in Harlem, and she would always update me. Do you know the Subway just went up again? It, like always saying that.
I know,
Subway just went up again. It
I
just
know.
went,
It's
yeah.
crazy. I
How
know.
much is it now
225
for one way?
one way. Yep.
And you don't get a free transfer. We used to get free transfers.
There's free transfers, under certain conditions. I think if it's between maybe a select bus and anything else, you don't get it. But if it's just between a regular bus and the subway, you can get the free transfer still. But I wouldn't
Okay,
be surprised if they discontinue that at some point. So,
225. That can get expensive. But that's $5 a day.
yeah,
Uh, 450, $5 a day times that's $20. Yeah, because my cousin talked about these cards when he was working. He used to get these cards. It was a little bit cheaper to buy the card so they could go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You could because you used to. I think it was until a year ago when you buy a certain amount, you get some bonus rides, but they got rid of that. So now you just buy the number of rides, and that's all you get. No bonus
Oh, what?
thing. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm not used to that. We used to hang on the back of city buses and try to ride free, hanging off the back of the bus. I hope they don't do that no more, because that was dangerous.
I've heard of some teenagers who still do things like that.
No, that was ridiculous. I tried that one time where you stick your foot in the side door and stand on the steps and hold on to the thing from the inside
Yeah.
and just hang off the side. I tried that one time going across the 181st Street Bridge. The bus driver saw me and he ran the curb and tried to swipe me off with a light post.
Oh my God.
I was like, you know what? I'm never doing this again. I mean, he was running up on the sidewalk trying to scrape me off with a light post.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, are you serious? This will never. I think I tried that once and I was like, nope, this is not for me. I'm not going to die trying to save 25 cents here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he tried to kill me. I'll
Yeah.
never forget that.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, depending on the bus driver, if you get one that's having a bad day.
Yeah, but they used to get jacked because over there by 82, when the bus stopped to pick up an old lady, you got 100 kids going in the back door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing you could do about that. That bus is full now. And
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do. That's just you make you don't want to stop there when school lets out, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same situation still for
There
sure.
was a spot on University right next to East Tremont, across from 82. There was a big candy store used to call Luhr's,
Mm.
Luhr, Luhr's Candy Shop, and they used to sell bulk candy. You could buy it. We used to get the white chocolate. I think it was 50 cents a pound, and it had the almonds in it.
Yeah.
They had everything in there. You could buy food too, but their big thing was candy. You could buy bulk candy, and they used to weigh it and cut it, and it was fresh. And I remember our teacher, Susan Meltzer. She was a young white woman who taught our 7th grade class. She was a fresh new teacher, kindest woman in the world. Used to take everybody over there on their birthday to buy them chocolate.
Oh wow.
And that's how I knew about Luhr's, from Miss Susan Meltzer. She was a teacher at 82. And she took me over there on my birthday to get some white chocolate. I had never heard of white chocolate,
Yeah.
much less from 1971, fresh creamy, new, no preservatives, fresh almonds. This stuff was incredible.
It
I
sounds,
still love white chocolate to this day, thanks to Miss Meltzer.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Talking about food.
for sure.
And then there was a little hole in the wall restaurant a little bit down the street from that. It was a Cuchi Frito place, so the Puerto Rican
Okay.
restaurant. And you can go in there in the middle of the night and get yellow rice, pinto beans, and this Cuchi Frito. Oh my God, it was delicious, delicious
I'm
food.
sure. Yeah, there's definitely, a number of really good cucci frito places still in the Bronx.
I hope they are.
Yeah.
Yes, that stuff was good, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're coming back from a party, and that's another thing too. When you talk about parties, like sure, the Disco Fever was an important place, but prior to the Fever, there used to be a spot on Burnside and Jerome. It was called a Hevalo,
Huh.
and the Hevalo was a bar. I don't know. Yeah, it was a bar. How teenagers got to take it over and drink and party, I have no idea. But we used to go over there on the weekends and party in the Hevalo. And that was incredible. In fact, one night, the DJ said, we got a guest who wants to say some words on the mic. And this is before we even knew about rapping.
Yeah.
Turns out this guest who was rapping was Run from Run DMC. This is prior to
Wow.
Run DMC. And this guy rapped, I want to say, an hour nonstop. It
Wow.
seemed like an hour nonstop. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm like, is this guy still going? Yeah, he's still going. Non-stop, just rapping. And it sounded great and it made sense. And this was before people even knew what rapping was.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
This was a new thing. This guy was talking, he's rapping over this music, and he was just going for it. And it looked like it lasted forever. I was like, damn, where's this guy getting all these words from? That's the first thing I thought of. Like,
Yeah.
his longevity is just ridiculous in terms of how long he can do this, man. And that was prior to the Disco Fever, prior to Herc's blowout outdoor parties, prior to everything. And the first spot was a church on Featherbed Lane at the Triangle. University 174th, there's a little triangle with benches. And there's a church right off to the left. And that's where all the parties initially took place.
Oh, really? Okay.
We used to go to what they said to the church party. Yeah, they're having a church party tonight. Oh, bet. That's where all the parties started, was at the church parties.
What was
And
the
then
name of that church? Do you remember?
I don't know the name, but it's still there. I seen it
Yeah.
on Google Earth. If you go to 174th University, you see the Triangle Park right there in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Right to
Yeah.
the left is a church that goes down. It's on Featherbed. It's at the top of Featherbed on the turn. It's still there, red brick church. And you can see that on Google Earth. And that's where all the parties started out at. If you go Featherbed, 174th Street, on University, there's a little triangle park. And right there going down Featherbed on the left side, going down, is a red brick church. And that church is where all the parties started. We were still in junior high school back
Okay.
there. That was before. You see that?
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yeah. Featherbed Lane Presbyterian is what it is now. I don't know.
Okay, that's where all the parties was at. In there, it was so dark and had one little blue light, and it was cool because if you were gonna get lucky and have a slow dance with a girl, that's where it was gonna happen. That's where it was gonna happen. And if you were that lucky, then that was sex back then.
Yeah.
That was sex. If you can hold a girl that closely and breathe on her and dance in the dark, that was sex back then for us.
Yeah.
That's as good as it got,
Yeah, for sure.
And later on, as we got a little bit older, they moved over to that club, the Hevalo on Burnside and Jerome. And then, of course, they went to Disco Fever and outdoor parties and stuff. But early on, it was a church party. That's where everything kicked off, was right there at the church party.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That would have been 71-ish.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So,
About 16, yep. 21, 14, 15, yep.
and
That's
and,
what happened.
and Cool Herc probably wasn't even in 1520 yet.
I don't think he even got there yet. I don't
Yeah,
even think he got there yet. It was way early when we was doing the church parties. And
you
if he wasn't, doing it how he's doing it now. Is because once he got huge and got out and people recognized what was happening, of course, we credit him for bringing that to the world.
sure,
But
sure.
before that, there was just a couple of local guys DJing, and doing it. Because there was another guy, I can't think of his name right away, but he was developed a scratch DJ, something like that. So he was in our neighborhood too. But yeah, the church party was just playing records and in the dark with a bunch of teenagers,
Yeah,
hot, sweaty teenagers, And that's where it started at, right there in that church. Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I haven't been able to find out much about it, but when Cool Herc lived in the Concourse Plaza, there was a little club there that I think he used to go to. I think called Tunnel Tunnel Vision, maybe, or is just right connected to that hotel. But I don't think it was still around by the time that there was a fire there and everyone
Okay.
out. But
I don't know his story. Beyond coming to our building, that's when I met him. And like I said, we got to be good friends. And he named me Flint Rockski. I'll never forget that. He
Flint,
used to be on the mic. Oh my, it's my man Flint Rockski coming in. Yo, look at him looking dapper tonight with a couple girls with him. Nice, Fred. What's up? That if you can get one of those over the mic with everybody listening, that you really felt like you did something. The king has anointed you. You know what I'm saying? What's up?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Didn't take much for us back then, guy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
It was this feeling of self-importance was the main thing. That was the
absolutely,
main thing.
absolutely. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm sure you're probably getting hungry, and it's lunch, a little past lunchtime even for you. So,
So that's okay. I've enjoyed every minute with you, man, and I hope that when I get back to New York, when we can travel again, that I can stop by Florida University and say hello to you and Mr. Nicely.
absolutely, would love to see you whenever you're able to come back to New York, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now, even though
Okay.
stand. Let me see.
Cool.